everybody, and welcome back to the Barely Bookish Podcast. Today we are going to be talking about Frankenstein yet again, and I am once again joined by Allison and Becca.
Hello.
Hi.
We are at the good bits. Good things are happening. I'm excited because we're talking about... Yeah, it's getting interesting. Our monster creature apparently went to he studied English in college or something because he is very well enunciated.
He's articulate.
Articulate. That's the word I wanted. You know?
He's articulate.
And so are you, Rachel.
Yeah, for sure. As you can tell by the sentence I just pulled together. Thank you. So we are on chapter 3 of part 2 if you're reading the 1818 version. If you're reading any other version, best of luck.
I still don't even know what version I read.
Yeah, wait, I'm the 1930 whatever version. Chapter 3, is that the start of the monster's point of view? Is that where it begins?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Then yeah, it's also chapter 3 in the 1931 version.
Nice. So, chapter 3, hopefully for everyone then. I still want to do a side-by-side comparison.
Yeah, almost like a tandem read of Frankenstein.
I would make a chart. Everything would be highlighted. I'm telling you right now, when I inevitably retire, I'm going to do some weird shit. And this is top of the list. If I don't
I'm there for it. I'm right there for it.
I would consume that content.
Absolutely.
It'll be like me crocheting and also writing full dissertations about classic literature.
I love that for retirement. That sounds so nice.
I feel like you need a little shack studio in your backyard to do this. Mm-hmm. Something with lots of windows so you can do it while it rains.
Ooh.
Yeah.
I've thought about retirement a lot this week.
I've decided I'm never going to retire. I'm just going to get myself into a position I can work a job that I love until I die.
I love that. I want that too. That would be
nice. I think I just want to be a flower farmer, and if I'm doing it at 80, I'm doing it at 80, and at least I have something to live for. But also, if I croak in a field, just leave me out in the field. You just bury me right there. I'm done with, you know?
See, I keep making jokes about retiring, but I physically can't not work because it gives me tremendous anxiety. So I don't know if I'll ever actually be able to retire. I have 4 jobs. I don't know if I can do that, to be honest.
Agreed. I just feel like if I love what I do and I get to do it every day for my entire life, that's not too shabby.
I like that outlook.
Yeah. If I die doing it, I'm dying doing what I like. I just gotta get out of this corporate job.
You're gonna catch me being a YouTuber or whatever the equivalent is at 90.
Yeah. Whatever's new and trendy at 90, I'm gonna be making content.
Yeah. You're gonna get a video of me as a hologram. Hey, what's up, guys?
We'll just unfreeze you. Everyone's cryogenically frozen.
Just floating head, you know? Mm-hmm. All right, chapter 3 of Frankenstein. Speaking of cryogenically frozen, I guess.
They are in a glacier. Isn't this conversation happening in a glacier? What's happening?
The narrator, Victor Frankenstein, actively reminiscing from a glacier, yes, but Frankenstein, the monster, not in the glacier at this point.
Is he telling him his story? What's our context here?
This is kind of crazy because
this is a little Inception moment.
Yeah.
So we have the monster telling Frankenstein the story. Victor Frankenstein is reminiscing the story to our narrator, and our narrator is writing it down for our consumption.
That's right. We are 3 POVs deep into this story. Yeah, this is gossip. This is all hearsay at this point.
Literally.
I needed the context to refresh.
Yeah. Okay, wait, so where's the conversation between Frankenstein and the monster taking place?
In a cave.
In a cave. Okay. That's right, because he climbed the mountain, and then the monster came running, and Dr. Frankenstein was like, I'll fight you. And then they're finally talking.
Cave chats.
Okay, I'm caught up.
You know Monty Python when they're running and he never seems to be getting closer and it's dun, 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 dun,
yes.
You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
That's what I was imagining. The monsters running towards him.
That's really funny.
Wow, Rachel's the first one to make a movie reference in this.
Wow.
Look at me fucking go. I'm really,
My sole purpose for this book this time around has been making film and TV references.
I'm stealing your purpose, Al. How do you feel?
I feel like I'm getting fired.
Oh no!
Don't you worry, I'll come up with something.
Yeah, you got some good quippy lines.
I think it's raining, so I'm really setting the mood here.
It's raining here!
It's like downpouring and I'm starting to hear a little thunder, so this might show up on the recording, and you know what? I won't edit it out, so...
The lightning and the thunder are like key characters in this book, I feel like.
So, now we're getting monster POV-ish. He says he spent his first bit of life wandering and scavenging for food, which, like, aw, poor baby.
No, I
just left alone. He finds a cloak in the woods and immediately grabbed it because he was cold. And this is when I realized this dude's just walking around in the nude.
Oh, I didn't even think about that. Also,
for years.
How interesting that Dr. Frankenstein had to like mold another dude's peen. You know?
I mean, I feel like he's into it.
We didn't talk about that. The fact that
none of us.
Yeah, where did he was grave robbing,
grave digging,
and he's like,
he had to source the best peen.
He did have to source the best peen.
Like, how many do you think he looked at before he was like, oh yeah?
That's what I'm wondering. Like, how many graves in total did Dr. Frankenstein actually dig up? Because to like get all of those body parts, you're working with quite a few cadavers.
How did nobody notice, you know?
That's what I'm saying. Everyone just breezed over the fact that he's out there digging up graves and stealing body parts. Also, the stench. Like, wouldn't it stink? He had a servant.
I know.
We've breezed past that. We even let it slide.
I know. How did we do that?
We're like, yeah, stealing body parts, as one does.
Whatever.
We were focused on the incest too much.
That's true. That's true.
Trafficking.
Guys, it's like really downpouring, and the lights already flickered once, so we'll see.
I wish I could.
I feel like a Florida rainstorm is like the best. Like Florida gets the best rain.
Yeah, so he found a cloak, and while he was wandering in the woods, he randomly found a fire, and he's like, "Oh, dude, nice," and just throws his hand directly into the fire because he's cold as shit. Also, remember, this dude is now just naked under this cloak. He has no other clothes that we know of. So this is...
My man's has been streaking for like 3 years.
Yeah, that's true.
No, at this point, he's only been alive for like a couple days.
Oh, right, because we're going back in time.
Yeah, we're going back to like the monster's first day. Yeah.
You are right.
However, in this entire story, he does not seem to get other clothes.
That never once gets mentioned. So maybe Allison's right. He's streaking for 3 days.
I'd like to imagine if he's getting to the point where he's stealing food, he probably stole some clothes. Although he's supposed to be like massive in stature.
Massive. Yeah, whose clothes is he stealing?
And he's like hanging out with poor people, so it's not like they're like
the poors.
Oh no, it's like they're probably starved. You know what I mean? So they're already gonna be like tiny. How is he gonna fit?
Oh yeah, you're not wrong.
I'm excited to get to the poor people. I have so many notes on the poor people.
I love the idea of him being able to like steal some clothes, but he doesn't know like what goes where, and he's wearing like a shirt as like pants or something. Or
I will say there's a line like right when chapter 3 starts. It's in my like second paragraph. It's the end. He just talks about like he was just so overwhelmed. So he goes, I sat down and wept, and I'm like, he knows nothing. Like he knows nobody. He knows nothing. Like what a horrible way to just like start existing.
I just want to see a version of Frankenstein where we can see him exploring the world with trial and error in a way that's humorous and not depressing.
Yeah.
Because this is 100%.
Sad. It is sad. Poor monster. He don't even get a name.
Yeah, he never gets a name.
Oh.
Okay, he sticks his hand in fire. He can't see anything. He said he can't really distinguish anything except light. So he's just wandering around in the dark because the daytime's too bright for him.
Yeah.
But when he discovers fire, he does find the leftover food from the people who left the fire there, and he learns how to cook because he's like, oh, their food that they stuck in the fire is good. Maybe I'll try it. So he learns how to cook.
Yeah. And then he had to abandon the area he was in because he stopped being able to find food. He started to get like hungry, and there was no more berries on the bushes.
I'm frowning since nobody can see me. I'm frowning.
And then is this when he walked into that guy's house?
That was literally my next line. Is he just walks in and steals this dude's breakfast? It's like a farmer.
Yeah,
it's some Goldilocks stuff right here.
Yeah, he's like sees the doors open and he just walked right on in, and the old guy was like preparing his breakfast, and then looked at him and yelled and ran away.
Yeah, and then he sleeps on his like sofa or something.
Yeah, he talks about how dry the ground was, which is really cute.
So then after that, he keeps on walking around.
So I'm reading this down because this is not the part I caught up the reading today, but this part I had read last time. I didn't realize he goes in multiple cottages. He like wanders across a field for several hours, and then he arrives at a village.
Mm-hmm. This is a full-blown Goldilocks situation that we have on our
Yeah, he goes, the cottages allured my appetite, and I was like, oh no. And then he goes, one of the best of these I entered, but I had hardly placed my foot within the door before the children shrieked and one of the women fainted.
Oh.
The poor monster. And then he gets an angry mob set on him.
Oh, mine, they were just like threw stones at him in mine.
Really?
Yeah, it didn't say angry mob. It just said like I didn't have the Goldilocks, him going into a bunch of different houses, I don't think.
Really?
Just, like, wandered into a village and then everybody threw stones at him and he was like, all right, never mind.
No, mine he's like in people's gardens and their cottages, and then he goes, the whole village was roused and attacked me until I was grievously bruised by stones and many other kinds of missile weapons. I escaped to the open country and fearfully took refuge in a low hovel. I mean, he's having a rough go of it. And then he said, this hovel, however, joined a cottage of a neat and pleasant appearance, but after my late dearly brought experience, I dared not enter it. And I'm like, okay, he's finally thinking. Like, he's finally realizing.
He did get like a peephole, though. Let me make sure. Let me make sure I'm not wrong, because I could be wrong.
I'm remembering it. I mean, but I didn't do a full reread, as you know, so I might be wrong.
He never entered it specifically. Mine says, it was noon when I awoke, and allured by the warmth of the sun, which shone brightly on the white ground, I determined to recommence my travels, and depositing the remains of the peasant's breakfast in a wallet I found, I proceeded across the fields for several hours, until at sunset I arrived at a village. How miraculous to this appear! The huts, the neater cottages, and the stately houses engaged my admiration by turns. The vegetables in the gardens, the milk and cheese that I saw placed at the windows of some of the cottages allured my appetite. One of the best of these I entered, but I had hardly placed my foot within the door, and the children shrieked, and one woman fainted. Okay, like yours. Yeah. The whole village was roused. Some fled, some attacked me until grievously bruised me by stones and many other kinds of missile weapons. That's the same as yours.
Yeah, I think they're spot on.
Mine, I did not take it as he entered them. He just passed by them, and I thought. I didn't think he actually entered those.
I think this one, he says, one of the best of these cottages I entered, and had hardly placed a foot within the door before the children shrieked and the woman fainted.
Yeah, so I got that one he entered, but I didn't think he entered all the other ones.
No, I don't think all the other ones. But to me, this is the second cottage he's entered, and people have not responded to him well. I'm like, quit going in people's houses.
Yeah. Look at mine. Now I'm not sure. I felt like he was popping in, and but when they weren't home or something.
Yeah, mine said specifically that the food was on the window, and he's like, oh, yeah.
That's so cartoonish. I love that.
I thought he went into more, but it was mostly him swiping stuff out of windows.
I think it was a confusing line, to be honest.
Yeah. There is a line in here that I have highlighted, and I just next to it I wrote "beautiful," wow, just next to it, and it's when he goes in and finds the little what is it called, a hovel attached to the cottage. Mm-hmm. I just pictured it as a little shed attached to the side of the cottage,
Yeah.
And he goes, Here then I retreated and lay down, happy to have found a shelter from the inclemency of the season and still more from the barbarity of man.
Oh.
Like, poor guy. He's just started out. Like, he's just getting going. And he's like, I found shelter from man.
Poor guy. And
he laid down a little straw. Yeah, he has a little straw bed and a peephole so we can watch the poor people inside.
Oh. Then we are on chapter 4. So he's watching this family and he's like learning their habits and everything. And he figures out that the older guy in the house is completely blind. So I was like, maybe you're getting a friend that way. No, but I don't think I'm going to be correct on that one.
Like, if he doesn't see you, you might stand a chance.
Yeah.
It feels like every time you get excited for him, it's short-lived.
Yeah, things don't go well for him. Because at this point, I was really excited for him because I felt like he was learning so many new emotions. Like, when he was observing the family, he noticed how nicely they treated each other and, like, clocked that and learned that. And then he talked about feeling sensations that were a mixture of pain and pleasure that he'd never experienced from cold or hunger, warmth or food. And he withdrew from his little peephole because he couldn't handle, like, the emotions he was feeling. And so I'm like, wow, we learned all about him discovering fire and, like, sight and all of these tactile experiences. And now he's learning emotions. So I think that's really cute. I'm just rooting for the monster. I don't know if that's the best plan of action, but monster's my number one so far.
I don't know if I have a favorite character other than... No, I don't know. I mean, I feel like the monster's the favorite because his point of view is the most interesting, but it's so...
Yeah.
You're put through a roller coaster.
Yeah. And also, anyone's better than Dr. Frankenstein. Like, he's awful. Being in his point of view and his, like, woe is me, I'm the victim, when everything's just consequences to his own actions, I'm like, no, I don't want to hear from him anymore.
Literally.
This is like when you watch The Devil Wears Prada as an adult and you realize that the boyfriend is, in fact, the worst.
The worst.
That's how I felt when I was reading this book, because every depiction of Frankenstein that we see, he's really not the bad guy.
Right. That was a great movie reference, Al. That was fantastic.
I did it. I knew it was coming.
It was a good one, too.
It's true, though. It's like, every time you see any film depiction or anything, they make the monster so bad. And I'm not saying the monster's perfect, but he has no direction.
Right. No. So far, he hasn't done anything wrong except just try to figure out how to exist, and he's ugly, you know? And it's not even his fault that he's ugly.
He's naked and afraid. Okay.
Yeah.
Somebody help him.
Really and truly. I feel like you could honestly deep dive into this book of, like, the nature versus nurture aspect of it. Like, what if Dr. Frankenstein hadn't dumped him? Like, what if he had nurtured him and took care of him and taught him things? What would the monster have turned out to be like? And instead, we're watching kind of what nature is leading the monster to turn into. And we don't know what that is yet. But it's just like...
discuss for a moment the red flags that we see from Victor early on in life that gets him into the obsession. This book could also be how not to ignore the red flags that people present.
Yeah, 100%.
Before they create a weapon.
The other thing I would be interested in seeing is a modern retelling where basically Victor Frankenstein created the monster to be his, like, boyfriend and then, like, tried to groom him into his boyfriend, and then the monster has a homicidal rage because he's like, this dude's fucking weird.
Wait.
First we need a book accurate one, and then we need that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Because so far, and I'm gonna like fight this fight, we don't know that the monsters actually killed anybody. We have had no proof, no confirmation. Oh
no, I'm not saying he killed anybody.
Yeah, you're just saying your version. Yeah.
Wait, Becca.
Yeah, no, I'm like
to discuss for a moment that I forgot that your book cover, he's completely naked. So why are we confused?
Bare bones, butt ass naked, right there. Yeah, no question about it. Oh, he's got pants in yours.
He's got some capris on in that one.
Mine is really honestly, his body ain't bad, but look at his face. His face is terrifying.
Yeah.
But that's not at all what I picture the monster to be. Like, I picture kind of the classic, like, Frankenstein scars all over him and everything, you know? Not just, like, a ripped white man.
You know what? I would also like an adaptation where he's, like, insanely hot. Like, bodybuilder.
Yeah.
Like, gorgeous god. And everyone's, like, freaked
Yeah.
out just because he's, like, that hot. And,
He's
like,
so hot, yeah.
nude. And then, like...
Right, people treat him like a freak because he's so hot, not because he's so ugly. But no matter what, he's still treated like a freak. Oh, I like that! This is a good screenplay.
I want to see him wake up, and then they do the David Bowie changes like in Shrek 2. There we go. There's another. And all the girls that are like...
They swoon. Instead of fainting out of fear, they're like swooning.
I want to rub his shoulders. No, me.
Yeah.
What were you saying, Rachel? You wanted which part? I forgot.
Sorry.
No, it's...
Oh, wait. I do amend my statement. There is a version of Frankenstein where the monster is not that bad, and it is, in fact, Frankenweenie.
Of course it's Frankenweenie. Of course. You and Moon have the same facial expression.
The light
little pink
like
tongue.
It, like, struck outside my house. Like, it was so bright right in front of my window.
I kind of want you to turn your lights off, your overhead lights.
I mean, it's gonna get real dark.
I hate the overhead light, even in somebody's video.
Yeah,
I'm like, not in my house, not in your house.
We had a thunderstorm last night, but I want more.
Whoa. I will say about all of my notes on these chapters are just him learning emotions. He's learning so much empathy. He talks about watching the young man and the young woman just go outside and cry, and he says he's like deeply affected by it. And he doesn't... What I found so sweet is he's like, I don't understand why they're crying. They have fire. They have shelter. Like, what are they upset about? And I'm like, that is so sweet. You know?
So pure.
It's a good perspective, though.
And he learns joy. He talks about the delight he felt when he was realizing that the words they were saying meant something, that they were referencing things when they were talking, and he realized that communication was possible, and he said he felt like immense joy, which I thought was really cute.
Him realizing they were poor and he was like stealing food and he felt so guilty about it. I was like, oh my god. And then he was like, talks about how he started chopping the wood for them in the night, and they started calling him like an angel or something. I was like,
yeah, mine says they called him a good spirit.
Yeah.
And also, like, but at this point, it's been months. Like, he's been there for months. And I'm like, if you're all of a sudden noticing chopped wood just showing up on your property for months, wouldn't you be looking around a little bit more? Like,
listening.
Your food's being stolen? Like,
or listening. Can't you hear him chopping wood?
Yeah. I
in the middle of the night, I guess.
Yeah. And I think he goes a little further out, but
he has to.
I will say I highlighted where he calls them his friends. He talks about observing his friends. So cute.
The thing that gets to me, though, is like, how is no one gone in the shed? Because he sleeps all day. And also,
it's snowing. He talks about he clears the path to the cottage for them. And I'm like, wouldn't they see his footprints in the snow?
I know. Like, how is no one observing anything?
Mary Shelley, these are some plot holes. Like, the old man's blind. What are the other two's excuses?
Yeah. So he starts like kind of viewing them as like his future family, which I'm like, oh god, this is gonna end badly. And then we're on to chapter 5. So randomly, some lady shows up the door dressed in all black and asks for Felix, who is the family's son. The girl's like bawling her eyes out, showing up, and I'm like, did they like buy this woman?
I had the same thought. I said, here we go again. More human trafficking. Like,
literally.
I find her to be a very strange addition to the story. I know she's a device for his language acquisition, but it's a weird part of the story for me.
She is a weird part of the story. Rachel, did you make it to the part, I think it may be the chapter after this that you said you didn't get to, where Okay. They go into her backstory. So
I haven't gotten there yet.
Okay. We'll have plenty to talk about when we get there.
What's your first impression of her?
I'm like, I feel like they bought this woman.
Yeah.
I don't understand how she's there. If they're so poor, like and why'd she show up in morning clothes?
Okay, you're reading. I had all the same questions, even on my reread. Like, I've read this book so many times, I forgot who this woman was, and like, why did she show up on a horse in morning clothes, weeping? But then Felix is so happy to have her there, and I'm like, this can't be a bride situation because they wouldn't have been able to afford to buy a woman.
Yeah,
because they're so poor. And also, why is she mourning? Who's died? And like, and she's unaccompanied. It's just bizarre. This woman just shows up and it's bizarre.
Drop her off.
Oh, does she?
Yeah,
I think that's how it is in mine too. The only impression I have of this, on top of what you guys are saying, was, did Mary Shelley get stuck for a few weeks and then come back and she's like, oh, this woman's gonna show up. I know what I'll do. That's what it felt like to me. Not that she's necessarily an afterthought, but she's a device.
Yeah. I guess the other option is like she could be like a very distant relative whose like parent died and then she had to go live somewhere. But then like it's weird that Felix is like drastically more interested in her. But I guess we marry cousins in this book, so whatever.
Yeah, we get her story, but I'm just going with my first impression. I was like, what?
Yeah. As we're kind of mentioning, this woman does not speak the same language as a single resident in this household at all. Like, no one knows what the fuck she's saying. She doesn't know what the fuck anybody's saying. And this is how the monster gets to learn English.
Not English, French.
Oh, you're right.
Oh, is this book French? Like, is
French? No, but the family living in the cottage is French. Which I don't think we know that for sure but next chapter, what I was talking about, the backstory, you find out the family's French. It's not a spoiler. It's just like thrown in there. Yeah. And so then I'm like, oh my God, how bilingual is this monster? Because I'm pretty sure Dr. Frankenstein only speaks English. And they live in Germany. And so I'm like, how many languages does this monster know? Like, he gets really intelligent.
I love this for him.
I guess I always thought Frankenstein was German. Like Victor Frankenstein. Isn't he German?
Oh, is he German? Does nobody speak English in this book?
Maybe his name is Frankenstein, you know.
Does the narrator speak English? Is the narrator English? Because it would make sense if Dr. Frankenstein knew German and English, and then the monster would learn French and German? I don't know.
I have no idea.
I want to know.
But I do know the family.
I was reading as well. I'm like, what language are we speaking?
Language. I do know the family living in the cottage is French.
The narrator's writing to his sister in London, so he knows English.
Okay.
Which means Dr. Frankenstein knows English because he's talking to the narrator.
I'm going to Google, but continue. I will mute my typing.
So, we do find out that the stranger's name is Safi. Guessing pronunciation on that one. And this dude has been here for like many months at this point.
Yeah,
like,
it's summertime now.
Yeah, seasons are changing. Like, he's learning a lot of the language. Felix is also teaching Safi to read, which is now means the creature's also learning to read. But I'm like, how are you learning to read? Like, how close are they to this freaking hole in the wall? You know, like
that's true. That's very
strange
true
to me.
But I also loved that they talked about what book they were learning to read by, because obviously they're poor, they don't have a lot of books, and it's called Ruins of Empires, and I'm like, damn, heavy read to be learning on. That's crazy. But he says it's like through that book that he learned like a knowledge of history and several empires existing in the world, and it gave him insight into the manners, governments, and religions of different nations of the earth. And I'm like, okay, so that makes sense why he makes so many references, like when he was talking to Dr. Frankenstein to like try to get him, one, not to fight him, and two, to hear him out.
Yeah.
He kept making all these like high intelligent references, and we're like, where did he get this knowledge? It's from this book. So I'm like, how lucky is he that the book he was learning to read from was like a really intelligent important book and not just like some kid's book, you know?
Yeah.
Hit
And
the
he also,
jackpot there.
talks a lot of shit about like humanity because of this book too. There's like,
ooh, sorry, go ahead.
Very fine. I think it makes like very interesting that he's like, man, humans kind of suck, guys. Like,
yeah, 100%. I made a note here because I thought it was so interesting. The monster in that kind of paragraph where he's talking about the book he's learning to read from, the last sentence, he says, I heard of the discovery of the American hemisphere and wept with Safi over the hapless fate of its original inhabitants. That is first of all, I'm like, wow, pretty woke for the monster to be like, hey, what you were doing to Native Americans was bad. And I'm also like, really interesting that this is the second time Mary Shelley has mentioned how she didn't like the invasion of the Americas, because I think I even wrote it down on page 56 of my version, she talks about America would have been discovered more gradually and the Empire of Mexico and Peru had not been destroyed. So I think Mary Shelley, I'm like, wow, you're pretty progressive. If you're in 1818 talking about we shouldn't have invaded the Americas and the people that were living there would have had a better fate if we hadn't moved in. I thought it was just really interesting that they're like, what I think are pieces of her own politics just sprinkled in here. And then it gives me a little bit more hope in the whole, this is a gay love story, because that's the only way she could like get it out at the time period, is just like hinting to it, kind of like she's hinting to her politics. I loved that part. I think it's really, I don't know, it's like reading Little Women and seeing how things are still perpetuated today, and then reading this and I'm like, oh, so people weren't always bad, you know, people knew that bad things were happening and were against it forever, you know.
Yeah.
I have answers to our language question.
Ooh, let's hear.
I'm ready.
I think we are correct. From what I'm reading, we can assume safely that Victor speaks English because he can speak to Walton. And we can assume that he can speak German because he was in Ingolstadt learning. Which is
Ingolstadt. I love how you said that.
That's how they say it in the audiobook, Ingolstadt.
Oh, love it.
So I think that they're saying that's Bavaria. And then we know that he can speak French because the monster speaks French. So we are correct.
Oh, so we're saying the monster does not speak any other language but French.
That's the language he learns.
Fair. Interesting. You wonder if he learns any others, or if Victor's just trilingual or something.
I'm not seeing that the monster...
I'm sorry, I have so many... If y'all can see all of my writing, I don't think you can. These 2 pages were like formative pages in this book for me. I feel like so much happens in this part of the book that I highlighted just about every line on these 2 pages and filled in all of the little indentions with my notes, just because I'm like, there's so much stuff is happening.
Margins, is that what you were looking for?
Margins, thank you. It was going to drive me crazy.
I saw that look in your face and I was like, I will supplement the word.
Yeah, I needed it, or else I would have really kind of lost it. It's like pixelated all over again.
Yeah, I was just thinking, Rachel, Becca sent me this video the other day, and it was like of some wallpaper sample she received, and she was trying to say that it was pixelated, and she goes, dude, what is the word? But I'm watching the recording, and she goes, you're screaming it at me, aren't you? And I'm like, yeah. Pixelated.
I go, I can't hear you, you're too far away.
Made me giggle because in real time I'm like, it's pixelated, Becca.
Yeah, and the whole time I'm like, it looks digital. Like, I cannot.
The tiny little squares.
I was like, the tiny squares that make up a picture. You know what I'm talking about. What? Like, no, it's crazy.
That's so cool.
But also there's a line, sorry, I'm trying to like read through my notes and figure out what's actually worth bringing up and what's not. There's a line in here where he talks about kind of like what you were saying, Allison, where he learns to really kind of like dislike humans. And he goes, for a long time I could not conceive how one man could go forth to murder his fellow. But when I heard details of vice and bloodshed, my wonder ceased, and I turned away with disgust and loathing. And I'm like, that right there tells me he probably didn't kill William. Like, if he's this upset about like men turning on each other and killing each other, then that makes me think he wouldn't turn and kill a child. Like,
this whole part reminds me of, I know I already made this connection before, but in the Marvel movie, the Avengers movie with Ultron, he scans through, he's like this AI that takes over the world, and he like scans through things for humanity to learn about them, and then he's like, wait, humans are terrible. And it's definitely inspired by this. There's not a doubt in my mind.
I realized that like that dude had 3 names because it was originally Jarvis,
yes,
then Ultron, and then Vision.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that. Well, oh yeah, because
but like I don't remember his name being Ultron. I know that's what the movie was called.
Hang on, let me. Ultron is like Ultron. When he's James Spader's voice, specifically. Who is Ultron?
There we go.
I need to know if I'm right. He's a comic book character. Yes, I'm right.
Yes.
He's the artificial intelligence originally designed to be part of the peacekeeping program, but he does not keep peace.
I need to rewatch that because I'm trying to remember how Jarvis became Ultron, became Vision.
They're trying to make, this is going to just sound, I'm going to go off on this tangent from what I remember.
Okay.
They take Jarvis's intelligence and try to put it into an Iron Man suit to like be an automated AI version of
You don't
Iron
need the
Man.
human in the suit, yeah.
Right, so they do that, but then he gets like too smart.
And
then he's like trying to learn about humanity and is like a bunch of videos are flashing across the screen a bunch, and then he sees war and like all the bad things that humans have done, and he's like, humans are awful, I must destroy them.
And then I know like he also gets one of the fucking, I can't remember what they're called, Infinity Stones in his forehead. And I don't know at what point that's Ultron or when he's Vision, so
Ultron is when he is evil.
Yeah.
But how does he go from being evil to being Vision?
They like
I feel is it because he falls in love with Scarlet Witch?
No, they have to like reprogram him or something. I don't know.
They turn him off and back on.
I am not a Marvel expert at all. I
haven't seen it.
When we talk about this part, I can't unsee that part, and there's no way that the whole story of Ultron is not inspired by Frankenstein. Is what I'm getting at, because the way he learns about humanity just kind of reminds me of that, except it's done like all through him scanning media and like whatever in more of a virtual way, not like him exploring.
No, that's a killer connection. I love that. Because this whole part, like I'm making notes about all the human emotions he's learning, and then he's talking about like the words in the book kind of made him self-reflective, and all of a sudden he realizes that he doesn't have any belongings, he doesn't have any money, he's ugly, and he becomes like super insecure. And I'm like, how did he go from being happy with like the bare minimum and like watching the people in the cottage just have a candle and a roof over their head and a dirt floor, and he's like, I don't understand why they're unhappy, they have everything they could need. And now he's sitting here after reading the book of all these great empires and everything, and he's like, wow, I've got nothing. And he gets really depressed and really unhappy. And I'm like, that is such a human thing. And then he says, probably one of my favorite lines in literature I've ever read. He goes, I wish sometimes to shake off all thought and feeling, but I learned that there was but one means to overcome the sensation of pain, and that was death. What? Oh. What? And I'm like, that existential dread is so human. Like, that is such a human emotion. I love it. And he says, another killer line in this, he talks about, he goes, I cannot describe to you the agony that these reflections inflicted upon me. I tried to dispel them, but sorrow only increased with knowledge. And I'm like, sorrow only increased with knowledge? Yeah. That is so true for, like, a human. Is the more you know, the more you have to be upset about, and ignorance is bliss, and the monsters just figured that out. Like, it's just crazy to me that he is the quintessential human. Like, he's experiencing these very human emotions. He's made up of human parts, but he's the monster. He's the bad guy, and I feel bad for him.
Definitely trying to make a lot of clear depictions of what it means to be human.
Yes, I feel like Mary Shelley has used the monster to break down all of the building blocks that it takes to become like a fully emoting human, and has shown that like you can piece those together even in a monster. You don't have to be human to experience these things. You know, even the monster's able to figure it out. And I don't know where she's trying to go with it. Like, what is your point, Mary Shelley? Like,
because it's not all good and it's not all bad.
Exactly. Just because he's a monster doesn't mean he's inherently evil, and just because Frankenstein's a human doesn't mean he's inherently good.
Right.
Because the monster's just learned all of these horrible things that it is to be a human.
My last note of this chapter is that apparently he also learns about the different sexes and children. And I was like, all right, sure.
Okay, I also made a note of that because when he talked about children, he talked about kind of understanding their infancy and being like the mothering nature of people and all this kind of stuff. And then he talks about like he has no parents and who was there to comfort him and everything. And I'm like, if he understood children to be this like very gentle, nurturing nature, again, why would he kill William? It doesn't make sense. He's already saying he didn't like the fact that in like the book about war, he didn't like that men were turning on each other and killing each other. And then he understands how important and fragile a child life is. But you're still going to accuse him of killing William? I don't believe you.
Correct. Yeah, I also don't believe it. Sorry. Not sorry.
I think it goes back to the nature versus nurture, though. He wants to be nurtured, and that's the comment, I think. That's the significance of the comment to me.
Yeah. Yeah, my last note in this was he's so lonely, and the existential dread is kicked in.
Yeah.
Like, I feel so bad for him.
I'm excited that the next reading will get even more chapters from his point of view.
Yeah, where are you at, Rachel? Where are you at? What are you thinking? Who done it? What's happening?
I wish I was doing this without having read the book beforehand.
Yeah.
But I'm still enjoying it, like, so much.
I've tried to only refresh myself per segment that we're doing because I want to be a little surprised right before.
Yeah.
It's been a minute since I've read it, and even some of these details, like with my refresh, I can only do it so in depth without doing a full reread. And sometimes you guys are bringing something up, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I totally forgot that happened. There are a lot of layers to this.
There is.
Yeah, sorry, Rachel, I do want you to answer the question of like where are you at? What are you feeling?
I like the monster. I feel like fuck everybody else. I really yeah. I really feel like Victor is still gonna somehow make him out to be the bad guy. I'm surprised that even in his retelling, he's like, oh yeah, the monster is doing great, and like just thought there were so many problems with humanity, blah blah blah. But I'm not like understanding how Victor is giving him so much leeway. It seems like out of character for him to like actually show this much compassion in telling the monster's story. But I'm glad we're getting to hear it. I just don't know how much of it's true.
Yeah. I also wonder if Mary Shelley even kind of, I mean, I don't want to like underestimate her, if she even realized that the monster's point of view is still from Victor's point of view, because it's Victor retelling everything. And so he is the one retelling the monster's point of view. And so it's like, how are we getting such a genuine, unbiased version of the monster's point of view, unless Mary Shelley just kind of forgot about the fact that it's supposed to be Victor's retelling and just told us the true monster's point of view.
But do you think that's an intentional choice?
I don't know. That's why I'm like, I don't want to underestimate her and think, oh, she just didn't realize the monster's POV should have been hinted with like a layer of Victor's biases. Instead, she just gave it to us completely unbiased. At least from what I think, it's completely unbiased, because I'm like, yeah, if this is with Victor's retelling of it all, he is being very gracious with the monster.
But I mean, we're also skipping through a lot, if you kind of can tell that too. Like, because you have to imagine that the monster's probably really trying to lay out the struggles of his first few days. and Victor's like, and to recap, he wandered, you know, like
yeah.
And then we have fucking whatever his name is, Walton, I think, recapping that too.
Yeah, I mean, this is so he said, she said, he said. Like, it's really gossipy.
Okay, but let me ask you this. Do you think that it being if it's an intentional choice to have it be he said, she said, like this many layers of retelling, and are they reliable, unreliable? Do we think that that's an intentional choice to depict how things get rationalized?
Ooh, that is like a English teacher question if I've ever heard it, and I love it. That's such a killer question, Allison.
Now I want you to break into groups and discuss.
Yeah, get your small groups.
Because this time around, that is something I've thought about a lot. That is this all to show us how we rationalize good or bad choices?
Mm-hmm.
Wow, yeah.
I feel like this is something we're going to have to discuss at the end.
Yeah, I'm going to have to think on that one. That's like a big...
400 words, double-spaced, and...
It'll be half your grade for at the end of the quarter.
Yeah.
400 words is not much, so that makes it more difficult.
Yeah, that's like a paragraph and a half.
I had a class in college where it wouldn't be that many pages, and that made it, or that many words, and that would make it really difficult because I feel like
I can ramble.
I
can write in high school.
I had a teacher in high school that made us turn in a 40-page essay. I will never forget it.
I've done a couple of those.
She didn't think about it because there was like 30 kids and she taught 3 of these classes.
Yeah,
and she made everybody write 40 pages. It was due like the last day of class, and like there was like no real guideline, and this book was only 120 pages.
Is this the one where she forgot to grade it? Or she ran out of time?
Yes.
There's no way she could read all of that.
So my friend was like, fuck this.
Yeah.
And 15 pages.
Yeah.
And that she got a B+, I got an A.
Oh, so she did grade it. I thought she didn't end up having time.
She faked graded it. Fake graded it. She liked me more than my friend.
Yeah. That's messed up.
But that is all we have. And we're going to talk more in 2 weeks. Right here. Same time. Same place. And we'll catch you all in the next chapter. Bye, everybody.
Bye.